What's up YouTube? So April is finally here and we're getting all kinds of awesome tech releases. The year's only gonna get busier and better from here on out, so stay excited. Of course, in today's video, we're having a look at the latest member of the Surface family. I'm talking about the Surface Laptop 4. For this configuration, we've got it in the 15-inch AMD variant, so we're rocking Ryzen 7 4980U processor on board. We also have 8GB of speedy DDR4 RAM, a 256GB solid state drive. We also have the latest Wi-Fi and Bluetooth standards, and of course a Ultra HD touchscreen, which is all awesome stuff. And we're gonna go through the good, bad, and the ugly on this laptop, and of course answer the most fundamental question: is it worth your hard-earned cash? So as always guys, if you enjoyed this review, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel. I promise we got all sorts of awesome stuff here, you won't regret it. Thank you for watching, let's get started. Going through our mandatory unboxing experience, the first thing you'll notice is how nice the packaging looks. Honestly, you can see a graphical image of the Surface laptop in the color you got it in. On the top you can see the branding saying Surface Laptop 4. Microsoft seriously nailed it over here. On the back side you have some additional basic information about the laptop, its specifications and configuration. And that's pretty much it. You'll also notice there's a nice little plastic tab here to actually remove the wrapping. I kind of like that. It seriously adds a nice little touch once you remove the plastic wrapping and proceed to actually unboxing or opening the box itself. Inside, the first thing you'll see is the queen itself, the Surface Laptop 4. Remove that plastic wrapping and here it is in the platinum color. Honestly, this thing looks super sleek, but we'll come back to it in a second. Beyond that, you have a few additional items. So firstly, you have a paper pouch which contains the Microsoft booklet. This is the instruction, quick start guide, warranty, and regulation information. Beyond that, you have a larger box. Inside this box, you have a 65-watt charging adapter. It's worth noting the charging adapter actually has a built-in USB port, which is a nice little touch. Unfortunately, Microsoft is still using their proprietary charging adapter, which is a real shame. I was hoping they would be more rational this time around and actually use a USB-C adapter instead. But it is what it is. From a design perspective, this is honestly a super sleek looking laptop. Now granted, it does look very similar to the previous iteration of the Surface laptop, but that's not a bad thing at all because again, it meets all the checks of a nice looking laptop in 2021. It is worth noting this laptop has a total weight of 3.4 pounds approximately, which means it's not the lightest laptop in the neighborhood, but again, that's totally acceptable given this is a 15-inch laptop and B, it has some seriously high quality build material. Let's talk about the top surface of this laptop. Get it? Top surface. Anyway, lame jokes aside, the top side of the laptop has a pure metallic smooth finish. It's cold to the touch and you can just feel the quality. In the dead center, you have the Microsoft logo in a mirror-like reflective surface. Again, looks super premium. The rear side of the laptop doesn't have much going on. You have a flat finish. Moving on to the side of the laptop, this is one of the two biggest negatives of this laptop. I'm talking about the severe lack of I/O port diversity. So basically you have a USB 3.0 port, a USB-C port, and a headphone jack, and that's it. Those are all the I/O ports you have on this massive 15-inch laptop. On the other side, you have the total waste of a space proprietary charging port. Again, this could have been easily substituted with a USB-C port, a micro SD card reader, but I guess Microsoft decided to take the wrong page out of Apple's book and make their own stubborn variant of a lightning port for no good reason. Seriously, it hurts just seeing that waste of a space here. Cheer up though, when you make your way to the bottom side of the laptop, again you have a super smooth metallic finish that feels nice and premium. You also have on the top side, as you can see, the Microsoft branding, and above that you can also see the exhaust vent that goes nearly end to end. It looks really nice and simple. When you unfold the laptop, that's when the real magic happens. The first thing you'll notice is that super spacious palm rest space. No matter how big your palms are, they will comfortably rest on this laptop. But the real MVP here is the trackpad. Oh man, the trackpad is so good. So you have a high quality glass surface finish, but honestly, when you click on this thing, it's so subtle yet so tactile at the same time, and it's so well balanced. This is honestly one of the few trackpads that can actually make you forget that you're not using a mouse, and that's a huge compliment. I honestly love the trackpad on the Surface series, and the Surface Laptop 4 does not disappoint in that regard. The keyboard is just as good from a quality perspective, so you basically have well-labeled keys that have amazing tactile feedback and a surprisingly generous amount of key travel. Every keystroke feels wholesome, and you might just actually enjoy typing that essay you've been procrastinating on. It is worth noting you do have, of course, a fully backlit keyboard. Some people may find the backlighting to be on the dimmer side. However, again, in low light settings or in a darker setting, it'll light up just fine. One big downside for some people is the fact that there is no 10 keypad on this 15-inch laptop. That may be a deal breaker for some number crunching productivity users, so keep that in your consideration. You don't have any dedicated function keys, which is fine because they're all integrated into the traditional function line, and that's where you'll also find your power button. Now, I don't know about you, but I suffer from a severe case of hingeophobia, which basically means I'm afraid of the hinges of a laptop breaking. Yes, I did totally make that up, but seriously guys, the Surface Laptop 4 has one of the best quality hinges I've seen. It seems like it's built to last, it does not wobble, it's sturdy and it stays in place. And yes, it's one of the few laptops which you can actually open with a single hand, which in my opinion is a trademark of a high quality laptop. As far as display fitting goes, you have a pretty thin chin, which I'm kind of jealous of because I'm trying to get a double chin. But all jokes aside, you do have slightly thick bezels for 2021 standards. They're not obtrusive, but they are somewhat noticeable. And on the top side, you have a pretty thin forehead. You do have a dual array microphone setup and a 720p webcam. It's worth noting the webcam quality is more or less on par with most of the competition. It's nothing great, but it's not bad either. And yes, you do get Windows facial recognition on board with this machine. Let's talk about the quality of the actual display itself. This is a very high quality display, one that's definitely worthy of being on the Surface Laptop 4. So you have a native resolution of 2496 by 1644. It looks super crisp, super HD, and you'll appreciate the screen with the awesome viewing angles as well. It is worth noting this is a fully touch captive display. Additionally, you have a sRGB color accuracy of 98%. Colors look flush, vivid, and lively. If you are a creative professional, you will definitely appreciate the color accuracy here, and it will help with your workflow 100%. On top of that, you have a peak brightness of 400 nits, which is more than ample for any kind of indoor setting, and even in most outdoor settings, it's more than sufficient. Now, there is one massive drawback with this display, and in my opinion, it's a massive oversight on the engineering part. This is a extremely reflective display. It's not anti-glare in the slightest. If you have any sort of highlight going on in the background, or if you have a lot of reflective surfaces, you will see it all. This thing is literally just one step below of being an actual mirror itself, which is a real shame because sometimes it can really take away from the immersion of the high quality display Microsoft has here. I really wish they kind of thought about that, but there is of course a solution to this. You could always buy a anti-glare stick-on screen, but again, it's an oversight and it's one that I feel is kind of silly given the high quality display they have over here. In terms of performance, this is a pretty powerful laptop. So granted, you don't have the latest Ryzen 5000 series chipset on board, but that's kind of a blessing in disguise, because if it did, you could be potentially waiting months before you actually got your hands on the AMD variant of any Surface laptop. Of course, with that being said, this laptop is plenty powerful for doing all kinds of day-to-day tasks, everything from web browsing to watching the occasional video to doing some Word documentation processing. Is gonna feel super crisp and about as fast as it should on a modern day laptop. In terms of more resource intensive usage, you'll find that stuff like video editing, for example, here works pretty well. So on DaVinci Resolve, I found that 1080p video editing was a breeze. However, when you start doing 4K video editing, you find that 8 GB of RAM becomes a bottleneck on the base configuration, and you do get a fair bit of frame drop and lag if you are putting a lot of tracks together. So if you can afford to get a 16 GB or higher RAM configuration, I'd highly advise you do that, but this laptop stays cool on and all. From a gaming perspective, you can definitely game on this laptop. I do believe that the Intel variant has slightly better gaming performance because the Iris Xe chipset is definitely in a league of its own when it comes to integrated graphics, but still you'll have a fairly enjoyable gaming experience as long as your expectations are modest and you'll run most things at low settings. From a thermals perspective, this laptop can hit a peak CPU temperature of 90 degrees Celsius, however, at which point the computer very quickly thermal throttles and brings it down to a sustained load of around 80 degrees Celsius at peak usage, and there's not that much thermal throttling, believe it or not. Of course, from a fan noise level, it can get pretty loud at 45 plus decibels, but this is usually for short periods and only when you're really pushing this laptop to its limits. Otherwise, under lower workloads, this laptop is honestly whisper quiet and you can hardly hear the fan on it. In terms of battery life, at 50% brightness, doing day-to-day tasks like web browsing, watching some YouTube, listening to some music, you'll find you can get all the way up to 13.5 hours of battery life in a real-world test. However, bump that up to 100% and your battery life very quickly drops to around the 10-hour mark, and start doing exotic things like 4K video editing or even playing some games non-stop, you'll find that your battery life can drop to as little as 3 hours, and you definitely feel that drastic change in battery life. But again, it's not out of the average and it's more or less what I expected it to be. The final element I want to talk about is the fantastic speaker system on board. I think it's underrated, honestly. So the Surface Laptop 4 has a unique system where the sound actually emits directly from beneath the keyboard as opposed to some dedicated grills. This actually sounds better because the spread is better, but surprisingly you have little to no distortion even at higher volume levels. It's actually a very nice sounding speaker setup. Have a quick listen for yourself. So priced at $1,300 for the base 15-inch AMD configuration, this laptop isn't a bad deal by any means. It looks super sleek despite the fact it uses a similar design to the Surface Laptop 3. It's still super sleek and checks out in 2021 in my books. Also, it's worth noting, aside from the actual build material quality, you also have a superb trackpad and keyboard that have a super tactile response, and it honestly shows. On top of that, the overall display of the laptop is superb in terms of quality. It's a high color accurate display. If you are a creative professional user, you will most definitely again appreciate it. However, one of the biggest downsides is the fact that this is not a anti-glare screen, and there is honestly a lot of reflection that can often be a deal breaker if you are using this laptop in a bright outdoor setting or in a really well lit indoor setting as well. Additionally, having no 10 keypad may be a bit of a consideration for people who do a lot of number crunching, but again, it's going to depend on your use case. But the biggest letdown with this laptop, or its biggest negative at least, is the extremely limited IO diversity. The fact that you only have 2 functional ports on here, excluding the headphone jack, in my opinion is borderline unacceptable for a flagship series laptop like this, and Microsoft should seriously consider getting rid of that proprietary charging port. It serves no useful purpose aside from the fact that it's trip safe. But overall, guys, all things considered, keeping the performance in mind, keeping the build quality in mind, this laptop is a pretty good value as long as your use case does not conflict with any of the negatives I mentioned. All in all, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Soul of Tech, logging out.